It's a football Friday here on Birds 365. You got McMullen, you got McDonald, and we got Paul Domowitch, our usual Friday early guy. Thank you much for getting up, Domo. Appreciate it. You're quasi-Hawaiian, subdued Hawaiian today. I like a little eagle green.
Got to be subdued covering this Eagles team. Got to be subdued.
That's for sure.
That is surely one way to look at it. All right, Domo, injury stuff yesterday. Johnny thinks they're managing A.J. Brown up to the game. Jalen talked about the issue with his finger and his hand. He didn't throw yesterday, and he hasn't thrown since he hurt it and got pulled from the game Sunday. You can't tell me. I saw someone on the stream say it's Eagle propaganda. They want that excuse after the fact in case they lose. Jalen
was going to bring up that group. Jalen. Yeah, they're already making excuses. I mean, come on, people.
So you really believe that they wouldn't have him throw in practice if he's capable of throwing? They're kind of playing a playoff game this week, but they'd say, "Oh no, Jalen, we don't want you to throw because that'll give us an out after the fact."
We need an excuse. Boy, there's too much time between NFL games, Tomo. There really is.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
You know, I talked to the 33rd team's orthopedic specialist, a woman named Dr. Jessica Flynn.
Yeah, Jess has been on the show a couple times. She's great.
And she was about that injury. And, I mean, she has no doubt he's going to play. She was showing a splint that it's like it's almost like a string type instrument that it works as a splint on that finger that should help him. Won't be much pain. The biggest problem is going to be it could affect a little bit of his accuracy. That was her opinion.
Yeah. I admit though, when I got to practice yesterday, and two things alarmed me. One, the fact that they were having practice, Damo, because the last time they had a late switch, they scheduled a walkthrough and changed to a full practice. The last time that happened, they were like, we're just trying to get some extra work in, and all of a sudden they're changing defensive play callers. So, you know, that was the first antenna. Second antenna is Jalen didn't do much in the small, now granted, very small portion that we're out there for, as you know. But then I'm starting to think, well, you know, Marcus Mariota's got to take some reps. They want to get out there and get Marcus Mariota some reps. I'm happy to hear what Dr. Flynn said. I think he's going to play, just like Baker Mayfield didn't practice at all in Tampa, and he's going to play.
Yeah.
But how effective he's going to be. And if she says it shouldn't affect that much, well, now I'm back in the positive category. I think that's positive. But yeah, it was a little iffy yesterday. It didn't look good.
He just needs to get the ball out quickly.
Wow.
They're going to be coming after him.
Well, yeah. And you led with the blitz, rightfully so. I mean, that's the story, right, of this game. We all know Todd Bowles. We just saw what Wink did. The Eagles have to have a better plan, don't they? Don't they, Dom?
You would think. You know, I mean, boy, I've talked to ex-players about, you know, what they saw last week, and they're just befuddled. I mean, that an NFL offense doesn't have either the quarterback can't see it, or there aren't sight adjustments that he should be able to go to, that people like Dallas Goedert aren't able to break off their routes as soon as they see that, you know, the numbers aren't matching up. I mean, we saw things last week that were really, really concerning. I mean, it just, you know, they've handled the blitz before pretty well. I mean, this hasn't been a real good year for that, but you know, hopefully they're making some adjustments this week, because this is, you know, how they handle that blitz is going to be on the coaches.
And the coaches can handle a team that's going to blitz heavy in any given game in one or two ways. One is play calling and the whole get the ball out quick thing, and design plays that you're not asking the quarterback to.
Bubble screens.
Don't laugh, John. It'll be part of it again. They'll throw at least one bubble screen on Sunday. I can guarantee you that. But here's the other one, Damo, is the composition of the guys on the field. The Eagles don't go to tight end as much as they used to. we know that it's not a strength of their running backs. Man, did Rashad Penny miss that pickup block badly the other day? I think we've seen the last of Rashad. Me thinks he could be on the inactive list on Sunday, but we'll see. They don't keep the extra back in. They don't go 2 tight ends. There is such a thing as max protect, and the Eagles don't use it near as much. Are they missing the boat there? Are they just cutting off their nose to spite their face that our offense is our offense, and we're not going to drastically change because we're not going to be dictated to by the defense? Are they missing the boat in how they're just deciding who they're putting on the field?
Well, I don't necessarily know that's the case, Jody. I mean, I look at the first Giants game. I look at the Arizona game. Both of those games, they went with a heavy dose of 12 and even 13 personnel, but mostly two tight ends. I mean,
what do you consider a heavy dose?
It was more than they've used all season, like 50+%. And it worked. I mean, Jalen's passing numbers were better with 12 personnel, and they were able to run the ball better with 12 personnel. And I really think I don't know how much they used it in week 3. I don't think a lot when they rushed for 200 plus yards, and yep. Swift had 131 or whatever. But I think we're going to see a lot of two tight end this week, especially. I mean, I'm not hopeful that A.J. Brown is going to play and or be effective. I mean, that's an MCL he's dealing with. He's got chronic knee issues during his career. I just don't. They're going to be lucky to get Devontae back, and I think they're going to have to rely on 2 tight end sets.
Well, if there's no AJ, yeah, I'm going to get really concerned. And you're right. I mean, because it's the playoffs, I think he's going to play, but he might not be effective. Yeah. So that has to be factored in as well. With the blitz and going to a more run-oriented offense or which would certainly excite Philadelphia. And then they had so much success, as you mentioned, running the football in Tampa the first time, which I don't think is all that relevant, but nonetheless, it's the strength of their team, right? The offensive line. Yeah. But this, and you mentioned it, you talked to a couple players, you saw it online, whether it was Dan Orlovsky or somebody saying the Eagles don't have sight adjustments, blah, blah. Is that even possible? That's a high school level concept. I mean, Nick Sirianni used to coach Phillip Rivers. Nobody better. I find it very hard to believe that NFL coaches, any NFL coaches, from the best staff down to the worst staff, can't insert something like that. So to me, it's got to be something else.
Yeah. I go back to last year, John. I think they were so successful at doing whatever they wanted to do. When teams did come up with something to stop them with the pass, they just ran it. Teams adjusted during the offseason. I think these guys, I blame it on arrogance, or because it's either that or laziness, because they knew defenses were going to adjust to what they were doing last year. They knew they were going to adjust to the RPO game and everything else and stop Jalen or slow him down. And they didn't seem to come up with a plan B to counter that. And that's where we are now. I mean, that's why I think, early on in the season, even when teams were blitzing early on, I mean, they were fairly effective. I mean, they found ways to score points.
Yeah.
It's just been in these 6 games. It's like they got to the San Francisco game and just got blistered. And it's like the reality of, we ain't going back to the Super Bowl because there's a team better than us.
Yeah.
Hit them and it's affected them ever since. I don't know how you explain the fall off the cliff these last 6 games.
Damo, let's take it to the other side of the ball, but continue to talk about blitz/sacks. Last year, Philadelphia Eagles #1 in sacks in the National Football League. This year, as you know, 19th. Yeah. Javon Hargrave, I know he's missed, and he kind of jumped back into the conversation this week by mentioning the fact that the 49ers actually practice hard, and it was kind of light here in Philadelphia. And Fletcher, did you see Fletcher yesterday say, yeah, Javon, we're practicing today? The back and forth trash talking aside, the loss of Javon Hart can't just equate to the drop off with the Eagles and a bit in their inability to get the quarterback to the ground. Do we see a reaction from the coaching staff this year, this week specifically, one Matt Patricia? Do you think the Eagles will blitz more than they usually do?
Boy, they're not very good at it. So I mean,
who's blitzing? Number one, who is blitzing?
I think I calculated in the 4 games with Matt Patricia, they blitzed less than they did with Desai.
Yeah,
but they've also defended the pass. I mean, teams have a 132 passer rating against the blitz in the 4 games Patricia has been the play caller. So,
132. Say that again, Domo. 132, and people want to blitz. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if anything, I might rush 2 and drop 9 and see if he can get in the lane. Yeah. You have to build your roster a certain way to blitz a lot. If you want to be Wink Martindale, you have to build your roster a certain way. And the Eagles just haven't done that. So you can't show up at the playoffs and say, all right, we're going to blitz with a bunch of guys who can't get home. In fact, to Jody's point about sacks, we always knew 70 was an anomaly, or you should have known.
Yeah.
You go back to the year prior, I think they were 31st in the NFL in sacks. 31st.
Yeah.
In Nick Sirianni, Jonathan Gannon's first year. They have guys who get pressure but can't finish.
Yeah.
And I think they've gone back to that this year, and that might be the reality. Not the 70. That was the 70. Well, was always the anomaly, as I said. But Brandon Graham's a great player. He's not a great finisher. Never been a great finisher throughout his career.
Yeah.
Guys like TJ Watt and Myles Garrett and Daniil Hunter, consistent finishers. I think it's a trait. I don't think the Eagles have that guy. They don't have that guy. They never had that guy.
But the Eagles are also down in pressures, too.
A little bit, but not that much. It's shockingly similar, right, Tomo? The pressure percentage?
Yeah.
They're down, but not that much.
The last
last 6 games they've been bad, but they've been bad at everything.
I mean,
overall,
I think it's just it's a bunch of things with the pass rush. I mean, Josh Sweat has just disappeared. I don't know if he ran out of gas or what. I mean, both his pressures and sacks have just vanished. Jalen Carter, about the 9th game of the season, hit a wall. Brandon Graham has not given them nearly as much as they thought they might get from him this year, a year removed from his Achilles injury, even though he's 35 years old. And Nolan Smith, I mean, they drafted him in the first round. They surely thought they were getting more than they did from him. And he's been, he's contributed.
He gave him more at Mike linebacker than they expected.
I mean, a number that stunned me, not so much the drop in sacks. I mean, that's obviously, like you said, that was going to happen. But last year, 32 of their 70 sacks were on 3rd down. Helped them get off the field. This year, and that number 32 was also first in the league in 3rd down sacks. This year, they've got 12. 12. That's the least in the league. And not coincidentally, they've got one of the most horrible 3rd down defenses in the league because they can't get to the quarterback, particularly on 3rd down.
Which comes first, chicken or the egg? Those 2 things.
Well, by the way, it doesn't make sense, guys, that last year they were always ahead. So they're playing from, it's 3rd and 10.
John, they had a bunch of leads here in this 6-game losing streak, too, that they coughed up leads. But teams are beating them by getting the lead. No, they're keeping.
Well, there's a couple things. One,
they've coughed up leads. They coughed up a lead in both the Seattle and the Giant game, Arizona game.
All right, significant leads. How's that? So you got guys dropping back. They've become one-dimensional. In a 1-score game, you're not one-dimensional. So they had more significant leads. And then the second part would be also the quarterbacks are playing. I'll go to Carson Wentz. They played a bunch of quarterbacks last year that were willing to hold on to the football, and that enables you to get more sacks. The 70 was always an anomaly, and I knew it was going to be a problem because, and by the way, if Gannon was back and if 5 starters were back that they lost, they still wouldn't get 70. So it's not personnel. That was an anomaly. It's happened 3 times in the history of football, or 4. What is it, Damo?
Yeah. They were the third. That was the third highest number since they started.
Yeah.
Practice sacks.
Yeah.
And you can't blame it all on the pass rush. I mean, excuse me. The back 7 has been horrible. But, we had Mike Quick on our radio show on Monday night on WBCB. And, I mean, he put it right on the coaching, especially these last 4 games. I mean, you watch these guys, they're slow to react because they don't know what the hell they're doing. The communication, I mean, they're not aggressive out there because they're, if you have to think you're a step late, and that's what this defense, that's where that defense is right now. That's where Reed Blankenship is before the injury. I mean, he was always getting there late. So are the linebackers. I mean, this isn't a great group to begin with, but when you don't quite know what you're doing and you just can't react, it just affects everything and gives the offense that extra step it needs to get past you for yards after the catch.
We know that part of the problem with the Eagles secondary this year has been injuries, but that's kind of every team in the National Football League. Nobody puts their 5 defensive backs out there and watches them play 17 games. Just doesn't happen. And the Eagles had their fair share of injuries. I wouldn't say above and beyond. Avante missed a lot of time. Slay missed a month here. Bradbury's been healthy all year. He hasn't played well, but he's been healthy all year. You gotta at least give him that much credit. Will there be any rethinking of the philosophy as far as working for the Eagles goes? And you know what I mean by that. Yeah. Practice. And that's the main reason that and again, before John corrects me, it's collectively bargained away. The Eagles aren't just changing everything. The league has changed a lot. There are rules that you get so many hours, so many minutes, but the Eagles take even less than that. They cut back from the minimum amount, the maximum amount that you're allowed. Will the fact that they've had to run guys in and out, and just the fact that the communication has been so bad, and yeah, I'm probably foolishly clinging to the fact that they practiced yesterday because they needed it. There isn't some behind-the-scenes reason that they actually went to practice instead of walkthrough that Johnny's waiting for the other shoe to drop here. Will they actually maybe work a little bit harder next year, Dama?
I don't know, Jody. Well, first of all, we don't. We're assuming Nick's back, so the question is, will he work?
Well, Jeffrey's going to be back. Howie's going to be back.
I mean, here's the thing: they're not doing anything different than they did last year. Last year they were healthy. Last year they were remarkably healthy and resilient, and this year they're not. I mean, sometimes injuries just happen in this game, and I don't know if that's the case here. I don't. There were years in the past where you could blame a lot of their rash of injuries, soft tissue injuries, on the way they were being trained and treated and their whole approach. I don't know this year. I would think he'd modify things a little bit. I don't think he'll modify things a lot because right now you look around the league, they're all doing the same thing. It's all starting line with a healthy group. So, I mean, I don't think we're going to see, Dick Vermeil training camps and
that's not happening.
Well, yeah, you can't do that, but they leave a little bit on the table as opposed to somebody like Andy or John Harbaugh would do. They leave a little bit on the table, but not much. And everybody, I was talking to somebody who used to work for the 49ers because Javon Hargrave it was on a podcast, and I think people took it out of context because if you watch, I ended up watching the whole thing. Javon said it's more difficult out there practice-wise with Kyle. Yeah. And he then went on to say, and he loved it here. He said he could play to 40 if he was here, the way they managed him. So he loved it here, but they took out one clip, and it maybe looked a little bit like he was saying it's better out there.
Yeah.
But I was talking to somebody who worked for the 49 and Kyle Shannon while Kyle was there. And he said, no, they hour and a half off, maybe a little bit harder, but there's not much you can do. And their main goal, he said, is the same as here: keep the guys healthy and keep them up to par. So I don't know how much you can do to amp up stuff like that, but since we went down the Sirianni route, if anything, I keep open. At one point, I was 100% he's not getting fired. Now, I never learned from my mistakes. You always got to keep a little bit of a percentage open, because we're talking about the want of one guy. That's what we're talking about, really. Jeffrey Lurie. That's it. Yeah. So if Jeffrey Lurie wakes up one day and says, you know what, I don't like the way this is going, and that's where I open it up to 5% or something like that. I don't think it's going to happen. Any chance Jeffrey Lurie does that and says, hey, you know what? 3 playoff, the best record in the NFL since he came in, 3 straight playoff appearances, not good enough for me. You're fired. I'm going to start over again.
I'd be, you know, I'm with you, John. I didn't think there was any chance of it. Still, you know, even now, very little. But, you know, excuse me, there have been so many coaches fired here, and so many people available that are intriguing probably to a lot of people, including Jeffrey Lurie. You know, I don't know what he think. You know, I mean, we know that the Patriots have been one of their role models for years. He admires Belichick. Would he bring him here and fire Sirianni? Well, again,
might have to fire Howie as well. Would he do that?
Exactly.
Bill's not going to sit there and say, all right, Howie, just pick the players for me.
Well, he could put Howie back in the desks and chairs department again for a couple of years. No, I mean, I saw Tim McManus said it's in play, and I, you know, have as much respect for Tim as anybody on the beat, with the exception of you. So I got to believe there's a possibility, but I mean, do you know how scrutinized you're going to be if you fire a guy that took you to the Super Bowl the year before? This is the same guy.
And sorry to break in, but I gave this list out yesterday. I want to give it to you, Damo, because you do stuff with the 33rd team and the whole league. And I want to get this past Jeffrey Lurie to the whole league. So now that Belichick and Pete Carroll are gone, the NFL's current longest tenured head coaches, Mike Tomlin, 17 years, never had a losing season. John Harbaugh, 16. He's got the best team in the AFC. Andy Reid, 11. We know Andy Reid. Super Bowls, AFC championship games, NFC championship games. Then you go down to Sean McDermott, playoff team. Buffalo's in a position to make a run.
He's number 4 already.
Yeah. Kyle Shanahan. These are tied. Sean McDermott, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay are all tied. Kyle Shanahan, best team in the NFC. Sean McVay won a Super Bowl, went back, is back in the playoffs. Then it goes down to Zach Taylor and Matt LaFleur. I've also had tremendous success. Yeah. Why don't these freaking owners realize continuity is best? Continuity is better than the alternative. Every single name on that list is a successful head coach. I think experience plays into that.
But here's the key, John. It's got to be fairly rapid success, because a lot of the guys who have come and gone didn't do it. Of that list that you just ran down, who went first 3 years without making the playoffs and got that 4th year?
Zach Taylor would be the only one that he was really bad to the point that, you know.
Then I tip my hat to
and then they got Joe Burrow. And they took off.
But I would say to that, the funny part, you and I both know it. It's probably because the owners cheat more than anything else.
Yeah,
you want to pay 2 coaches at the same time.
Probably. That's probably it. But to your point, Jody, Nick Sirianni's 34-17 with stick at 3. But so it's not like he hasn't performed. How many other coaches have a 667 winning percentage? It's astounding to me. We have to have this conversation. And by the way, plenty of things you can criticize Nick for. Plenty. But you can't fire him.
Yeah. I mean, judging from history and the way they handled the Peterson situation, who they fired 3 years after winning a Super Bowl, their first move was, when I say they, I'm talking Howie and Jeff. Their first move was, okay, we're going to tell you what to do. We're going to reassemble your staff for you.
Yes.
We're going to make the adjustments for you, and then you got a choice of whether you go with that or you say goodbye. So I think that would be, I think they would make some changes, make him change a little bit in whatever they are unhappy with before they would fire him. That firing a guy a year after he took you to the Super Bowl and after he just has gone to the playoffs for the third year in a row, it would just be astounding. I mean, it would just. But this is the NFL, so who knows?
And by the way, Gerard Mayo officially the new Patriots coach. So good luck to him replacing the legend. I mean, oof, you better get going quickly, Gerard.
Yeah, but he knew that. He signed a deal to become the next head coach while Belichick was still a coach. So, yeah, you're the coach after Belichick. You know what that means? You're replacing Belichick. Yeah, Gerard, you know what you're getting into. I'm not throwing a pity party.
By the way, he interviewed. He interviewed here when Nick got the job. To be the head coach.
A lot of people have high regard for him. They think he's going to be a good coach. Others think it's too soon. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, somebody's got to coach the team next year, and whoever it is, they were going to be replacing Bill Belichick. So good luck to whoever was going to take that job.
They better find somebody that can rebuild that roster first.
All right, Dama, one of the things I think that points to the fact that you can narrow focus, I've been saying this for years. The most important game that the Eagles played was the last game. And then the next most important game was the one before that and the one before that. And you judge the entire season, but with every week that you step back, you lose a little bit of the percentage of importance. The further away you get from now, it becomes a little less important, which is the reason why the Eagles are only a 3-point favorite. I'm even surprised they're a 3-point favorite against Tampa. Because they played this team, they beat this team, they dominated this team just 11, 12 weeks ago. Yeah. And I don't think you want to wipe that off the board, but it kind of tells you something that if that were the case, they beat them by 14 points. And oh, by the way, the Bucs got an touchdown. They're down 21 points in the fourth quarter. So just the fact that the Eagles are only favored by 3 kind of tells you about the recency of this football team. What do you think Nick Sirianni has changed behind closed doors, behind John McMullen's prying eyes and everybody else? Is there anything being done behind closed doors differently? Because they can't just keep saying, well, we know we're this good. Well, we know we're this good. We were 10-1. You got to change something, don't you?
It's kind of short period of time to make any dramatic moves.
I won't even ask for dramatic. A move, anything. Doesn't have to be dramatic, but it has to be something you can hang your hat on. Do they have that card up their sleeve?
They can. I mean, he's going to give it to the offense. I think this week, it's in the offensive line's hands and Jalen's hands to figure out how to deal with this blitz. Stoutland's been probably, they've had many a meeting figuring out ways to make some adjustments. I think we're going to see some, I would guess when this game's over, Jalen's probably going to have his fastest, snap to throw average of the season, because if he hangs on to it, their history. And I think they're going to run the ball this week. They have to. And as we talked about earlier, a lot more 12 personnel. I really believe they will do that Monday night. They did it against the Giants in Arizona, so it's not like they haven't done it recently, and it's been effective both against both passing and running. So that's what if you're looking for changes, that's probably what I would see them doing.
At P Damo, make sure you follow Paul on X, Twitter, formerly known as. Also check him out at the 33rd Team. See him there covering the league as a whole. He mentioned his show on WBCB locally if you're in the area. Had Mike Quick on this week, our good buddy, Eagles color commentator with Merrill Reese. Offensively, I'll end it here with you, Dama. They're 8th in the league. Now, granted, they've struggled down the stretch, but 8th overall. over the larger sample size. I maintain the only difference between this year's offense and last year's offense, and there were some clunky moments people, forget because it ended. There were some clunky moments and they struggled at times. Turnovers.
Yeah.
Turnovers. I mean, they were third best in the NFL last season, +8, second worst in the NFL this season, -10. You turn that on its head, that is a big difference. That is an 18 different, you go from 8 from the positive to 10 in the negative. If they turn that around, if they have better ball security, if they're making better decisions, and part of it with turnovers, we know it's just a randomness, regression to the mean. It's the same offense.
Yeah. I mean, you're right.
Or disagree?
Agree. I mean, they're the second worst playoff team turnover differential wise. The worst is ironically the Chiefs,
which is amazing.
Yeah. The other notable stat is they've got and this is unbelievable when you look at last year, a +5 point differential this season, and that's all on the defense mostly. I mean, their offenses hasn't been as effective, but the number is still respectable. I mean, you said like 7th or 8th in the league in scoring. They've just been so horrible defensively.
Yeah.
And that number, I believe there's only one team in the playoffs with a worse point differential. And
Steelers.
Yeah. So,
Damo, Eagles play on Monday night. You got 2 games Saturday, 5 games Sunday. What's the must-see playoff matchup other than the Birds for Damo this weekend?
I'm interested in watching that Miami Kansas City game. I mean, it's going to end up being one of the coldest games in the history of the sport, and you've got Miami, who for most of the season has been one of the most dominant teams in the league, now has to go play in frigid weather, and has lost guys the last couple of weeks. As anybody who's
they are devastated. You talk about being devastated injury wise. The Dolphins, man,
their pass rush is non-existent now. I mean, they've lost everybody, and so Mahomes is going to just. But I'm going to be interested in seeing that game because of the cold weather and how a team from Miami
the Eagles were down there practicing last training camp, Damo, and it was so hot that the Dolphins have the new training facility. They have a beautiful facility now, and they stayed in the indoor portion with the air condition just blasting, while the Eagles were stretching out in the miserable heat. And then they would come out and they destroy the Eagles in the joint practice. They stunted the perfect Eagles joint practice record. They don't need the air conditioning this week. They're going to be in trouble. They're going to be.
Yeah, I don't think that Jason Taylor is coming through that locker room door this weekend. Sorry to say, Dolphins. They are way down with their pass rushing capability. I want to see Joe Flacco. And it's the first game, so get it over.
Joe, cool. I believe you probably know this, Damo. I believe Joe has never lost a wild card game. I think it's like 5-0 or something.
You know what's amazing with him and their approach, with Stefanski's approach? I mean, he's throwing interceptions left and right.
Oh yeah.
They don't care.
No.
I mean, that's just he's taking the old school approach. I'm going to air it out. I'm Brett Favre. I'm going to make. We're going to score a lot of points, and if it means a few turnovers, a few interceptions, so what? Which is an interesting approach in this day and age of, where turnovers are not are considered.
Well, he's a perfect play action guy, and that's the Shanahan Kubiak. That's what Kevin runs, and so he's in a lot of ways he's a better fit than Deshaun Watson for that for what he wants to run. And that's just play action, throw it down the field, see what happens.
And talk about true 2020 hindsight. I could sit there and go, why did the Eagles ever cut Flacco? They should have kept Flacco. Flacco should have been here from 2021 on. Gardner Minshew, bah humbug. Marcus Mariota, bah humbug. Joe Flacco should have been the backup all along. Yeah, that would be true 2020 hindsight. All right, Damo, always a pleasure, buddy. We will talk to you next Friday again. Enjoy the game on Monday night, buddy.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thanks, Damo.
Paul Domowitch, check out his stat pack and information on JAKIBsports.com. And you can also catch him on the 33rd team. All right. Andrew DeCecco will join us coming up in, just about 20 minutes from now. Mac and Mac coming back here to Birds 365.